Well, now diving back into those rankings again, our patreon.com/rpack, great stuff over there. Why don't you give us a handful of guys? Like, I know you said, again, it's less about player evaluation specifically and more about the game theory, learning your leagues, what they do. But at the end of the day, you know how our audiences are. They want to know, who does Mike love? Who's his guys? So who are a couple guys that, regardless of position, you're just like, I find them on all my dynasty rosters, or I target them in all my leagues. Who are you trying to go out there and get, particularly if there's anyone out undervalued you see?
Yeah, I think I typically find Ryan Tannehill on basically all of my rosters. I think I've said it for the past 2 years. I think he's the most underrated quarterback from a fantasy perspective that we have. I mean, he's had consecutive like top 10, top 5 points per game finishes, and he's the same age as Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson goes multiple rounds ahead of him. They're both on, I mean, they try to be on more run heavy offenses. I'm not saying that you should take Ryan Tannehill ahead of Russell Wilson, but what I'm saying is at the cost that you can get him for, he's just a great quarterback one. He could be your quarterback one. I've won leagues, multiple leagues with Ryan Tannehill as my quarterback one. And also he could be your quarterback two. If you have Ryan Tannehill as your quarterback two, you are miles ahead of the competition because he brings the Konami code. People don't know it because he's white. I mean, I don't know why, but he used to play wide receiver. The dude has wheels and he can actually run. He's always run for touchdowns on the goal line. He's a threat there, and he's also good for rushing. So that's what you want in a quarterback, and he's still basically in his prime on a good team.
Now, imagine too, if you have Tannehill as your QB1, that probably means early on where everyone's going super flex like quarterback, you've probably stacked up CMC, like maybe Jonathan Taylor in there too.
Absolutely.
So you're probably stacked up, and getting a quarterback that really points per game isn't all that much different from the guys that have been going ahead of him. I like that strategy a lot.
That's exactly how I won one of my championships last year. You know, I went pretty heavy. I went super heavy running back. I had like Saquon Barkley. I won this league, and I had Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb, Miles Sanders. All three of them got hurt. I got Eckler too, who also got hurt, right? But the reason why I won is I had like James Robinson, I had Jonathan Taylor, I had a bunch of other running backs, and I had Ryan Tannehill as my quarterback, and he kind of stapled the way for me. So this is a great year to do it, and I'll tell you why. If you look at startup ADP right now, quarterbacks are flying off the board. Like in the first round, you're going to see 6, 7, 8 quarterbacks go off in the first round, and we don't see that much. And the reason why we're seeing it is because if you look at quarterback scoring last year, it was insane, right? If you didn't have a good quarterback, most of the time you weren't winning. If you didn't have like Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, etc. But I think, that was a big function of it being a really weird year, just a COVID year, shortened season, no training, no practices. In those types of environments, offenses tend to flourish. And then afterwards, defenses adjust, right? And you saw it towards the tail end of last year, like, quarterback production kind of tapered off a little bit. So I think people are currently overvaluing quarterbacks, and what that allows you to do is you're going to be able to get opportunities where you can get a team and start off with CMC and like Alvin Kamara. I've seen it, or Barkley and Alvin Kamara as your 2 opening picks. In years past, that would have been damn near impossible. You would have to sell your entire mortgage, your entire future to do that. You can do that this year and then run it back with a Ryan Tannehill in like the 3rd, 4th round, and then start pummeling back wide receivers. So I think this is a good year. I talk about flexibility, I talk about productive struggle, but this is a good year to balance it out and have some like win now teams, because you don't have to sell your future to do it. That's why I think it's kind of a good year and fun year to do that. So Ryan Tannehill is one of those guys for me, and then Kirk Cousins is another guy who people just hate. His value is never really reflective of what he's actually producing. So those are not popular takes, but those are guys that I've loved, and those are tried and true for me. And then in terms of maybe something more exciting on the younger side, like I really like Rashad Bateman. People hate Rashad Bateman after the landing spot. Like, oh my God, he landed in Baltimore, and Baltimore sucks. Lamar Jackson can't pass, blah, blah, blah. And you know what? Historically, I think that's definitely true, right? Baltimore in game neutral scripts are one of the lowest passing volumes ever. And it's for good reason, because they're also one of the most efficient running teams ever. Do I expect that to all of a sudden revert and they become the Chiefs? Absolutely not, right? But do I expect them to be the bottom of the barrel passing team, for the next 2-3 years? Because we're playing Dynasty here. Remember that. No. And even if I don't, like, you can be a very good producer even on a lower passing offense. We've seen that before with guys like A.J. Brown and stuff like that. Tennessee also a very low passing volume offense, as long as there's good scoring opportunity, which there will be plenty of in Baltimore Ravens, and the depth chart is wide open, right? They've needed an alpha wide receiver, and Rashad Bateman can be that. I'm a big fan of him as a prospect. I have been. He was my wide receiver 2 before the draft, and he still is after the draft because I think he's that good of a player. And, that's one where I think it goes against the grain. Everyone's fading him because of the landing spot, and I'm happily just grabbing him up in every league that I can in the late first.
Love it. And that's actually one I've recently had a little bit of a turn on because I was in similar in that pack, what you were saying, lowest passing offense, lowest completion accuracy, like all that, just horrible landing spot. And I think oftentimes us fantasy analysts are like looking for reasons to be down on people because it's so easy to always be like, I love this guy, I love that guy. And that's what gets all the likes and the clicks. It's trickier to find the guys to not like. So we're always making these narratives. And the more I thought about it, I actually was having a conversation with Thor over from NBC Sports Edge the other day about the rookies. And we were talking how do we judge Lamar Jackson's accuracy and all this when he hasn't had that type of big body, like physical alpha receiver? Like how are we judging this guy that's still ascending and reaching his ceiling in Lamar Jackson when he hasn't had that talent? And I was looking at it like Greg Roman's offenses. Yeah, they are so run heavy and it seems less than ideal, but man, Anquan Bolden had some great years in there, 1,007 plus TDs. We saw Michael Crabtree over in San Fran have 2 to 3 monster seasons, and Greg Roman's still very similarly run heavy offenses. But when they had that big body alpha that's working the middle of the field, which it sounds like Bateman truly can be, especially in your eyes, that those guys can produce in this offense for sure. So I've taken like a 180 on him where I was like, I'm probably going to fade this guy in my leagues to man, I can't judge this offense when they haven't had something like him. Yeah. And I'm thrilled to see what he does.
Yeah. The Lamar Jackson hate has been just been mind boggling for me. Cause like, why are we looking for reasons to dumpster a 24, 25-year-old guy who's not even close to his peak? He's still ascending. He's been playing, mostly with bums, right? On the wide receiver core. And, wide receivers matter. Like they contribute. So we cannot really judge a guy. And I think, we learned this lesson with Josh Allen, right? Like, everyone thought he stunk. Like I did. I made that giant mistake. And I was like, yeah, he's gonna nerf Stephon Diggs. And then what you don't realize is like an elite wide receiver completely changes the game for a quarterback. And we just cannot make an assessment of Lamar Jackson as a player without giving him the weapons. And I think everything Baltimore has done in this offseason, I know everyone wants to look at history and be like, this is how they ran, but every step they've made has indicated to you that they want to improve their passing game. They tried to sign every big free agent they could. They failed, right? So what do? They traded one of the top offensive linemen they had to land another pick in a range to get the player they wanted. And they got this player, right? And then, you hear the GM come on and they say, look, we study the numbers, we study analytics, and Rashad Bateman was a good prospect. And then, they're trying to add other pieces around him, right? So, everything they've done tells me that they want to pass a bit more. They're not going to be a high passing offense, but even if they revert a little bit, that creates a lot of opportunity. And the depth chart is just wide open. And here's the other thing, like Greg Roman won't be here forever, right? Like, he's either going to be really successful, right? And they're going to go deep and then someone's going to take him, or they're going to realize like, hey, this offense hasn't worked. We've done it for three years and we've got bounced in the first, second round every single year, and he's going to be gone. So when it comes to wide receivers in Dynasty, you got to chase the talent, right? More so than any other position. Like running backs, quarterbacks, you want to account for situation a little bit. That's totally fair. I do that definitely. But for a wide receiver, situation changes so quickly. And at the end of the day, it just comes down to whether or not you're better than the defensive back on the other side of the ball. That'll determine your targets. So, at the end of the day, you just want to get really good players. And then the situation and stuff will kind of take care of itself.
100%. Yeah, I can't wait to see if Bateman's as good as a lot of people, including you, think. But what his tape suggests, the analytics suggest, this offense could take to new heights. And I mean, this is an offense that everyone's like, oh man, they sucked. Like they were still top 10 in scoring last year. Yeah, they weren't, historic number one like they were a year ago. But we've seen again, Lamar Jackson, who we all knew was raw coming in, win MVP with, like you said, crap around him, lead the NFL in scoring with crap around him. So yeah, maybe there's a little bit of a down year, sure. But you add a weapon like Bateman, like I would not be shocked to see him and that offense get back to cheat code style, levels with, maybe he runs a little bit less because he has Bateman. So now he's throwing more, but maybe he's in the red zone more often and just breaking off those 15-yard TD runs that literally were like clockwork. I mean, I think I tweeted out today, I had 9 30-point games, I think, in 2019.
Yeah, it was a wild season.
It was insane. And I wouldn't be shocked to see him. Before we move on, I got this question that put me in a blender. if you were drafting Superflex and you have both Josh Allen and Lamar staring you in the face, which one would you be going with?
They're very close for me. So in my dynasty ranks, I think they're literally like probably like a couple of spots apart. But I have Lamar Jackson first, just because I think this is like the second coming of Michael Vick. Like this is the most prolific runner at quarterback we've seen, and he's a better passer today than Mike Vick was at that point in his career. And we see Lamar Jackson is a pretty damn good character as well. So we're not worried so much about like the character concerns. Like imagine like what Michael Vick could have been if he wasn't like if he didn't run into like all the bullshit that you know that he went through, or he put himself through, to be clear, early on in his career. And I think that's what we can see with Lamar Jackson. I think this type of runner is like one of a kind. So to me, I have Lamar Jackson ahead of Josh Allen, whereas like Josh Allen's last season was remarkable. Don't get me wrong. Like he made people like me look stupid who doubted him because he was an incredible player, and the way the Buffalo Bills built around him was incredible. That's the underrated aspect. That's the aspect that I did not account for, is how well the Buffalo Bills built around his skill set by adding a Stephon Diggs, who was a premier deep threat, but also just one of the best route runners in the league, and doesn't need you can throw. It gives you really, really big throwing windows, right? And then they added Cole Beasley to kind of help him in the short and underneath, and then obviously Josh Allen can throw off platform. He's a fucking cannon, so he can throw anywhere he wants. So the way they built around him was incredible, but that type of season is very hard to replicate where you're throwing for like goddamn near like 5,000 yards and like you're throwing for like 40-50 touchdowns. That is less replicable, I think, to me, than someone like Lamar Jackson going out and running for 800 to 1,000 yards every single season. So that's why I have Lamar Jackson.
It's a very fair point. It's one of those things where like it'd be very difficult to believe last season wasn't Josh Allen's ceiling. And it's not that he can't repeat that, but we've probably seen peak Josh Allen. There is a chance, no matter how good Lamar was 2 years ago, that we still haven't seen his final form. Like, I like that. I like that argument a lot. It was a tough question to answer, for sure. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.